I mean, we just had a tremendous fun at work. I mean, I always remember, it was on a second floor in Maryville where he started the company. So you had to, go up these wooden stairs to get into the building. And I always remember I always ran up the stairs. And it's like, okay, because I'm, young and I have plenty of energy, but also like I was eager to bust in the door, right? And it's like, let's go. Like it's the morning, let's get into it. We already got 100 emails from customers in the inbox. We've got sales inquiries, we got customer support to do. And then we've got just hacking. Let's go try to figure out how do we get out to more customers.
From the IT company, it's made right here. The stories of East Tennessee founders, creators, and builders. From the idea behind it to the impact it had on the community, their employees, and their personal lives, we're taking you behind the scenes of the movements they built. I'm Paul Sponcia, and on today's episode, we have part 2 of my chat with Brandon Bruce, co-founder of Cirrus Insight and Uncat. Today, we get to hear the story of building Cirrus Insight, as well as exit, and now the launch of Uncat.
I think the biggest challenge that we faced, and having talked with a lot of entrepreneurs around the country, it's really the same here as it is everywhere, is connecting with the best and the right talent. For us, it wasn't a matter of looking around at the other software startups and trying to attract some of the people from there to us, because there weren't a lot of other software startups when we were coming up. There are a lot more now, which is exciting. I think, fast forward 8-10 years, there's a lot more software startups in Knoxville than there were when we launched, which I think is awesome. But at that time, I think, really it was a matter of matchmaking. So I always said, we're out looking for people that want to be part of a high growth, exciting, let's work all the time and see where we can take this thing company. And for those people that were looking for the same thing. And so it was just a matter of us putting the word out and looking for those people and making sure they knew where to find us. As a result, I think that we were, very lucky in that respect, is that there are a lot of great, hardworking, talented folks in our community, because we have colleges and universities here, because we have a lot of other great companies. So, our team was, came in and they were just excited, like, let's go hit it. And they knew this is something that's going to be exciting. We get to serve customers. Customers are excited to use our application. So it's not a hard sell type company. This is what we do. This is how we can help. Do you want to join us on this journey? Kind of approached it. Chip on shoulder can be interpreted as kind of a bad thing, but I think it was a motivator. It's like, hey, we're going to run a software company. We're going to run it from where we want to, and that's going to be here. And we're going to go out and provide the best possible service. And, I found it was a great way to connect with customers. Like, sure, 25% of our customers were in San Francisco. Another, probably 10, 15% maybe were in New York. And we had some of our largest customers. This was as we grew. Some of our largest customers were in the UK and France and Australia. But the long tail of our customers were not in those big areas. These were companies from all over the country doing all sorts of interesting things: professional service companies, manufacturers, banks, et cetera. And so, they're located in Oklahoma City and Omaha and El Paso, right? So when they call and we're like, hey, we're in Knoxville, it's like, oh, awesome. We're also in a similar place. Like, so we get each other. And we're going to have great customer service. We're going to be here 24 hours if you guys need anything. And I think people really liked to work with our team because of that. I mean, on the one hand, in a bigger city, there's just more people, full stop. So with more density comes more choice, and there's more folks that may apply or be interested in joining. At the same time, we never really had to deal with the challenge that many of the companies that I talked with in those big markets deal with, which is attrition and poaching, right? So someone joins company A, and then 2 months later, it's like, oh, company B looks more exciting. I'm going to jump over there, and it's just across the street, and there's ample jobs there. We didn't have that, so we had tremendous, loyalty. People jumped on, and they were excited to work with each other, and also I think excited to see where the adventure would lead. Australia was a great market for us. We sold very well in Australia, and so anytime there was an opportunity to give a demo in Australia, it was typically in the middle of the night, because that was most convenient for their time. And so they would say, who wants to give the demo for Australia? Everyone on the sales team wanted that demo. There was nothing like, oh, it's the middle of the night. Sounds like it's going to be a hassle. I prefer not to be up. I need whatever. Everyone wanted it because there was an opportunity to close a deal.
That's cool.
And so, we had a team that was hungry. They wanted to do that.
How many people were in the company when you guys, maybe at your high point, what was the max number of employees?
Our highest point, I believe it was 72. Majority of the 72 were here. So at that point, it was probably a split of maybe 60% here and 40% in California, I would say, give or take.
I think about you can get people behind something and be inspired, but one of the biggest inspirations is just working around other people who are awesome, and who are inspiring. And a testament to you guys, you obviously built something like that where people wanted to be around it.
I mean, we just had a tremendous fun at work. I mean, I always remember, it was on a second floor in Maryville where we started the company. So you had to, go up these wooden stairs to get into the building. And I always ran up the stairs. And it's like, okay, because I'm, young and I have plenty of energy, but also I was eager to bust in the door, right? And it's like, let's go. It's the morning, let's get into it. We already got 100 emails from customers in the inbox. We've got sales inquiries. We got customer support to do. And then we've got just hacking. Let's go try to figure out, how do we get out to more customers? Who knows? There's no playbook for that. There's no and now you send an email, and now you start an ad campaign, and now you go to a conference. We're just inventing all that stuff on the fly. And so by being curious, we just had a lot of fun. And sometimes, most of the time, stuff wouldn't work. So check it off. That didn't work. That didn't work. And once in a while, you hit on something that works, and it's like you live for that. That's magic. So I'll give you an example. We went to a big conference in San Francisco, the Dreamforce conference. And the first year we went, we got a bunch of people that were interested that came by the booth, and we scanned their badge. And so we had this lead list of hundreds, maybe 1,000 people. We had no way at scale to get in touch with those folks. I mean, I was sending off one-off emails and calling people, and I was like, I'm swamped. We can't do it. And so thankfully, it coincided with the rise of automated marketing. So we signed up for a platform that allowed us to send emails at scale. And so we thought, okay, we're going to send an email out to everybody. This was after the second Dreamforce the next year. We're going to send an email to everybody. What should we say? And we said, well, most of the time, what we really want to do in terms of our sales pipeline was get people to a demo. We want to show them our app. We want to understand what their use cases are and see if there's a match. So we decided, okay, we're going to put everybody in this campaign and send out an email. And we're going to say, we've got some brand new tech we want to show you. If you want to see a preview of it before anyone else gets to see it, click on this link and you can book directly on the calendar of our sales team. Right? You choose a time that's convenient for you. So it's kind of a combination of automated marketing and calendaring. And of course, people watching and listening to this are like, yeah, that's what we do all the time. At the time, this was a brand new invention for us, at least. There were plenty of people that were doing it, but it was new to us. And so we're like, let's just try this. It's an experiment. So we send out this email, and then Daniel, who was our first hire, our first salesperson, came in about a half an hour later and was like, hey, did you guys send out an email on my behalf? Yeah, we sure did. We sent out an email letting people know if they wanted to check out the tech, they could schedule a demo with you. And he was like, well, it worked. And we're like, okay, well, let's do a little after action analysis. How many demos did you book? And he said, they booked up 40 hours of demos. I'm booked all week next week. They maxed out all the calendar availability I had. And so Jason, our VP of marketing, and I looked at each other and we said, well, we're going to run this campaign over and over. This isn't going to get old. You know what I mean? We're open up more calendar slots and send the email out again and book up. And so that was the beginning of kind of the marketing sales engine. Was little epiphanies like that. It was like, wait a second, if we can fill one salesperson's calendar, if we can start generating sales, which Daniel did, oh, great. Now we can have another salesperson. And if it works as well for that person, we can have another one. And so that was the beginning of the scaling of the team. And then we also, let people try a bunch of stuff. We didn't let them try it. They just tried stuff. And then we would look at it and see, oh yeah, we don't want to do that again. That didn't work. And then, occasionally it would work really well. So, examples I love to talk about, Max started on the sales team, ended up directing our customer success team after a couple of years. When we built the customer success team. Before, we didn't have one. That was kind of a new concept. But he joined on sales, and we gave sales team a list in Salesforce and said, look, we really want to call down these lists and see if people are interested in using our application. And so he booked up a tremendous number of demos. And so we went and asked, like, hey, what's going on? You scheduled a lot. And I still remember the answer because I remember thinking it's very clever. He just said, well, I called all the people that didn't have phone numbers. So it's one of those Zen, like one hand clapping, right? It's like, oh, okay. So we gave him this list, and a number of the companies, there was no phone number associated with it. What did that mean? They'd never been called before. There's no number.
Fascinating.
So he just went and looked up the phone numbers for each of the companies on the web, looked up their company headquarters and called them. They'd never heard of us before. So it was just greenfield for him, blue ocean territory. And so he's able to book a tremendous number because they'd never been touched before. And I thought that's just really smart. That's just good hacking.
Brilliant.
And then another one, and this one always is psychologically fascinating to me. He had scheduled a bunch of demos. And so we went and said, Max, you're scheduling like 3x the average number of demos. What's going on? How are you so successful? We want to learn from what you're doing and replicate it, hopefully, across the team. And he said, well, I use the same script no matter what the customer says. And we're like, that sounds like the wrong thing to do. Sounds like a bad idea, right? You're supposed to adapt, have a conversation, understand needs. And we're like, let's just run through a couple examples. Let's role play it out. He said, okay. So I call and I say, hey, would you be interested in doing a demo of Cirrus Insight? And they say yes. And he said, great. How about Wednesday at 10 o'clock? And they book the demo, right? Come to a convenient date and time. And we said, okay, great. That makes perfect sense. Let's run it the reverse way. So he says, all right. So I call. I said, would you like to do a demo of Cirrus Insight? And they're like, no, thank you. And he says, then I reply, how about Wednesday at 10 o'clock? And we're like, wait a second. And they agree to that? Like they actually book it? And he's like, yep. And I said, but do they actually come, right? Do they actually show up to the demo? And he said, yeah, they show up at the same rate as the other folks. And we spent the rest of the day on that one, just trying to think through what's going on. But the analogy that I decided was most applicable is I had a truck when I was in college. And so, of course, you have a truck in college. Anyone that wants to move from one apartment to another calls you and say, hey, guy with the truck, you're going to come and help me move. Occasionally you want to do something else on a Saturday. So be like, hey, can you help me move on Saturday? Oh, no, I'm busy, right? And then they'd say like, how about at 6 o'clock in the morning? And then it's like, you kind of got me, right? Like, what could I possibly be busy doing 6 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, I guess I can help you for a couple hours before the day really gets going. So I think what Max had determined was people were just sort of reflexively saying like, oh, no, I'm busy. I got something to do. I can't do a demo. But really, once he presented them with an actual date and time, they felt compelled to check their calendar. Sure enough, I actually do have time. And they would agree to book it and they would actually show up.
What we talked about, the hardest thing. What's the absolute best thing about building a business here?
And there's a lot of fun things. I think, one of the things I've talked about the team a lot, which is just the relationships were tremendous. And we had so much fun, in the office, just the banter. Our office was a loud office. You're talking about the sales team, the marketing team. So there's just a lot of energy, people running around constantly. One of my favorite things in the world was essentially, people sprinting for a bathroom break. And that sounds like a funny thing to enjoy, but it's like people were so busy with back-to-back demos. They hadn't scheduled in any time. So it's like, it gets to about 10:30. They've been doing demos since 8. It's time for a bathroom break, but they got another demo coming up at 10:30. So it's like people are just sprinting back and forth to the bathroom. I thought, this is great. Like there's just so much excitement and energy in the office. So I enjoyed that a lot. I think, one of the things and that we were able to do increasingly as we grew the company was get more and more involved in the community. One of the things that I thought was awesome is I got invited once to go to a lunch for Clayton Bank. Their board of directors was having a meeting and their executive team was all invited to extend an invitation to someone from the community to just be an observer at the lunch and partake in conversation. And then the board would actually go in a back room and meet without the guests. So I got invited to this lunch, and at the end of the lunch, Mr. Clayton announced, hey, thank you all for joining us. Thanks for being our guest and learning more about the bank and what we do. And we're going to pass around an index card to everybody. And everybody, please feel welcome to write down a name of a charity that you support. And we're going to gather these index cards, and we're going to make a donation of $500 to each charity. Now, there were 50 guests in the room. So I was like, wow. How awesome is that? Like every time they have this gathering, he's donating $25,000 to all these charities. I started thinking, I was like, well, we're not in the position financially to do that, but I love the community aspect. I love the lunch aspect of it. And so we kicked off what we called, Cirrus Insight. We always had a Friday lunch for the team. So we would bring in Jamaican food or barbecue, obviously Cuban. And so that was a tradition going way back. We did it in Maryville, we did it in Knoxville. What we started to do is open up that lunch to the community. So I told the team, feel free to extend an invitation to the lunch to anybody that you would like. And I'm going to do the same thing and just put the word on the street that there's a lunch at Cirrus Insight every Friday. I said, the key is we just need to know about how many people are coming so that we have enough food. But over the course of several years of hosting that lunch, we didn't actually keep track. But, I'd say upwards of 500, 1,000 people, probably closer to 1,000 people came to that lunch. And so it was just a really neat way to meet a lot of people in Knoxville. This wasn't like a sales lunch. Most of the people that came didn't necessarily use Salesforce. They couldn't use our app per se. It was just a way to connect. And we were also able to do things as a team in the community. Like we ran the marathon together, or the half or the 5K, whatever people wanted to sign up for. But we won the award one year for the Covenant Marathon as the fittest small company, right, for the number of miles we ran, which we took a lot of pride in. And then we were able to support a lot of great organizations throughout town and do some big initiatives. So in 2017, we commissioned the Guinness Book of World Records to come to Knoxville, and we put together the opportunity for students in Knox County schools to set the Guinness World Record for students learning how to code simultaneously. So we had 50 schools, 8,000 plus students get online at the same time and do a coding lesson. And, the coolest thing in the world was seeing the photos that the teachers would share of their classroom full of these, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed students working hard, just like glued in and collaborating on the screen. And then afterward, holding up their Guinness World Record certificates and taking those home to show off to mom and dad and their caregivers and be like, hey, I just set a world record at school today. Super awesome. So we loved, having the opportunity to do that as a company was one of the best things for sure.
Has the record been broken?
No, Knoxville's got that record. So we got some nice local, regional, even some national attention for doing that. And the coolest thing though was just being in the room with the students. We piloted it at about 6 or 8 schools beforehand just to make sure the tech worked, that we had a good video, that we had a good plan. And going in there, some of the students, I remember working with a student in Vine, we went into their class and he said, hey, what I want to do is create this little app in Scratch, which is a platform developed by MIT. And I want my character to shoot a basketball and it goes through the basket. Then once it goes through, I want it to roll back to me so that my character can shoot another shot. He's like, can you show me how to do that? And I was like, I have no idea how to do that, but we're going to sit together, and we got like an hour to figure it out. So it was like, let's just start hacking. Right. So we got to start hacking, and it was a ton of fun. So we did that throughout the community. They presented the award at L&N STEM Academy that afternoon. I remember as I walked into that room, and the superintendent was walking in alongside me, and there was a student there, and she turns to her friend. She didn't know we were walking past her. They were just having lunch. And she turns to her friend and said, hey, I did that coding project. We set a world record this morning. And she's like, I'd never programmed before, but I did it. And she's like, and I'm really good at it. And I was like, that's why we did it, right? It was like, it kind of broke the seal. It was like, well, I'd never tried it, but I'm really good at it. Like, she already had tremendous confidence in her ability and her creative skills to do it. And it's like, who knows what, will that be for her, sort of like the essay contest was for me? Will that open up kind of a new world? Maybe for some of the students it will. At least for all of them, they'll have a comfort level around technology that they will almost undoubtedly use in the future, in their future schooling, maybe in their career, probably in their career. So cool experience.
What I think a lot of people that we know, and you sitting in the seat of being interviewed today, we go through this journey, and I think that people see it from the outside as one thing, and even the people that are in the inside working with us see it as something, and then we're going through something, and many times completely different. But I'm wondering, like, it's just, you said it's hard work, and it's emotionally up and down with people and payroll and stuff like that. So do you feel like it took a toll, on you, on your family? Like, what was the, physically, mentally, emotionally, like what were the hard things about it that you look back like, man, that was tough. That was painful.
I do feel like, and part of the 7-year itch, I think for me, was knowing but I think of myself as a high energy person, and that I felt like that was one of the things that differentiated our company, is that the whole team brought so much energy into it, and the customers could feel that, and our partners could feel it, and that it was contagious. At that point, in getting through the sale, I remember just thinking, like, I'm feeling kind of tired, right? Feeling a bit tired. Need a little chance to reset, invest in the engine. I started thinking more about, I really need to get outside. And I spent a lot of time outside. Like, I think I had good balance in terms of, my physicality, in terms of working out, keeping myself healthy. But I had this sense in myself, like, I need to get out more. I need to have more flexibility to go, spend time doing long hikes in the Smokies. I need to get out on my bicycle and do some of my really long rides again. I did a long bike ride back about 8 years before we started the company. But I did a long bike ride. It was 508 miles through Death Valley. And that was a big experience for me, a big transformative experience to, go into the desert and go, it's a race. So race my bike for 35 hours and 7 minutes and kind of go through it. Right. I got a little bit sick during that ride. I had some hallucinations during that ride. But it was just a magical experience. And thinking back to it, it's like, well, who was there with me? Who was on the crew helping me get through the desert on this big adventure? Trisha, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, my brother, some of my best cycling buddies in Santa Barbara, and then Ryan, my good buddy from college, and his wife were there. And so it's interesting to think back to such a transformative experience and say, oh, wow, look at the people that joined me on that adventure and what they mean to me in my life, right? My best friend and business partner, my wife, my brother, and my brother and I are extremely close. And so, I want to get out and do some more stuff outside, kind of reset, give myself a chance to think about what the next big things were or would be. And that's a process I'm still doing, right? So, sort of fast forward, what have the last 2 years been like? Just a lot of community involvement. I'm lucky to be associated with a lot of great organizations in Knoxville. So, the Muse, which is our children's science museum here in Knoxville, Junior Achievement, which teaches entrepreneurship K through 12 and has BizTown up in Clinton, Tennessee, University of Tennessee Research Park, Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. We started up the Knoxville Technology Council last year, which I'm excited about. That has a great head of steam. We got a new initiative called eKnox Task Force that's providing internet to families, the households that can't afford it necessarily, that have students that are doing school virtually, or whether they're doing school in person or virtually. We're helping them pay for internet if they need assistance with it, and that's a really meaningful program, I think, for the community. We're kicking off a big project called 100 Knoxville. It's going to support a lot of Black-owned businesses, a lot of Black entrepreneurs here in Knoxville. And then I launched with my good friend John Bruck here a project called Startup Knox, which, as you know, we do a series of podcast interviews with other entrepreneurs to learn about their startups, which I've really enjoyed doing. And we've created a guide for sort of the Knoxville ecosystem, if you will. Here are all the resources available for entrepreneurs. So it's been fun to dive in on sort of, again, you can't really turn that stuff off. Like, I can't stop getting involved and doing stuff. So I've enjoyed doing that. And now I get to kind of sink my teeth into, this new software startup, and hopefully, several more coming out here in the next couple of years.
One of the things I think is real interesting about you and your family, and I bring this up because my wife and I, she's an entrepreneur. We have currently 2 kids under 2, as well as 3 older kids as well. And I don't know that we sometimes think through those challenges, and so I wonder what advice you would give, a young guy or girl starting a company. They've got a young family, maybe both people are working. Like, how did you and Trisha navigate that space in a way that allowed you to, you came through it. You have great kids, you have a great marriage, you're doing all kinds of stuff. It doesn't mean every day was easy, but like, how did you navigate that water to make sure there was time for everybody?
Yeah, and that can be a challenge, right? There's just, as far as most of us have been able to slice it, there's 24 hours in a day. So you're going to have, people nowadays especially talk about kind of this elusive balance. And I think, at least for me, in my mind, and in many ways, I'm kind of a contrarian. So when people say balance, I'm thinking about like, well, maybe the best balance is to be constantly out of balance, right? Like it's not necessarily a daily thing where every day has this perfect mix. It could be almost a binge bust where it's like, okay, you're going to work for 24 hours straight. And then the next day you're going to open up some more time to do some extracurriculars. And then sometimes it just plain gets out of balance. And then you got to course correct. So, early on we were about 2.5 years into growing the company. And there were opportunities to get out on the road and present what we had built to lots of user groups around the country. So we identified all these cities that had user groups of Salesforce. And I was like, we need to get out, show the people what we built. And so I started hitting the road. And, as with many things that I do, I sort of bundle them together and then go really big in one direction. So that year, and this is not unusual for anybody that works in outside sales, right? The travel aspect of it. I ended up probably just traveling too much. And I realized it for myself, but I also, people started telling me like, you're doing too much now. So I think I did 25 trips in like 5 or 6 months. So I was usually in the airport twice a week. And at least at that point, we were so busy, I didn't know, and I didn't really need to know where I was going. All I needed to know was I had a flight and it was leaving at a certain day at a certain time. And so I would just show up at the airport. And then at that point would try to figure out, okay, what city am I going to? Because the presentation is going to be basically the same, but I would customize it for each city while I was on the flight. And then when I land, I'd do the presentation, meet a bunch of people, do a networking event afterward, and then come on back. But yeah, when I started to know the people really well, right? Like in the Detroit airport where I'd step up and they'd be like, hey, the smoothie from a couple days ago. I was like, that's awesome. At the same time, like, why do we know each other this well? Like I'm spending a lot of time with you in this airport. I started to realize, okay, I need to ratchet back. Some people in the company were like, hey, you need to be in the office more. And so, thankfully we were able to grow to a point where it became a great opportunity for lots of other folks in the company to get out and travel and have the same experience that I got to have. And they loved it, right? It's like, oh, that's awesome, right? I get to go to New York or Minneapolis or Denver and pitch and take people out and enjoy meeting customers in person that have used our app for years. And so that was a cool thing that, for our team, some of whom had traveled already, some of whom I remember going out to a big conference in San Francisco and just saying, as we were getting out of the air train, right, to get to the lot to get cars, I said, hey, so real quick, just touching base, is everyone familiar with San Francisco? Who's been here? Who hasn't been here? And it's like, no one had been there before. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let me give you kind of the lay of like what we're doing. And cause I've been to San Francisco lots of times cause I grew up in California. This is what's happening. And then, a couple people were like, raise. I was like, yeah, questions. Right. And they were like, well, not only haven't we been in San Francisco before, this is the first time we were on a plane. And I was like, oh, wow. Like it hadn't occurred to me to ask. Right. So it was like, being part of that opportunity with folks at that level, that was something for me. That's one of the most special things about being an entrepreneur and getting to work with other people is the relationships I had with folks on the team had so much more depth than relationships I had with people as a coworker at companies that I was with. And that's because I got to hear about the great things usually pretty early. Like, hey, I want to update my insurance. Like we're going to welcome a child, right? In 8-9 months. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Right. So excited. Or I'm getting married or I'm going to buy a house. Right. And I would get the call from the creditor wanting to make sure that they were employed and so forth. So it's like, oh yeah, confirmed. Right. They're working here. Like, hey, congratulations. You're getting a house. That's super cool. So all these like really high points in people's lives. But then also I was one of the first people that, people would come in the office and close the door and they might be crying because they've been diagnosed with an illness or they had a death in the family. Right. And it was like, oh my gosh. Right. Like I'm in the first few people that they told in the world, sometimes the first person, and being able to talk with people through those situations and hopefully, try to help as much as I could and have the company be there and the whole team to be there to help people was pretty neat.
We go through this journey, really of just life. And there's kind of two things that tend to happen. We have successes and we have failures, successes and we have failures. And you think you've learned more from your successes or your failures?
In some ways, we may learn more. People typically say you learn more from your failures. And probably the reason for that is all of us, and sometimes to our detriment, focus more on our failures. And we have a success, it's sort of like, okay, that happened, but we have a failure and we stew on it or kick ourselves about it. And so as a result of spending more time on it, we may learn more from it. One of the things at Cirrus Insight is we kind of realized after several years of building a company that we really weren't pausing to celebrate the successes. We had a ton of fun in the office every day, but we would win a deal. Let's say it was a big enterprise deal, the biggest deal of the week or the month or the quarter. And basically that was great. And then just on to the next thing. There was another demo to give, another customer inquiry. And so you just kind of move on and keep hustling and doing the work, which on the one hand is healthy. There was plenty of work to do. On the other hand, once we identified that, we did start to try to pause more and have a team meeting, really call people out. Hey, great job on that. Hey, let's celebrate that we're onboarding this new customer and they're really excited to be, to join us on their journey of building their sales machine. And so we try to do that more. So as a result of focusing more on some of the successes, I do think that we were able to learn more from them too. We started to really, how did we win that enterprise deal? Oh, okay. There's a 3-step process, right? It was like, okay, sell the business case to them, but then we also in parallel needed to work with legal and we need to work with security. And then, oh yeah, there's that fourth leg, which is procurement. And so by understanding that process, we were able to kind of replicate it and have more successes. But yes, I certainly remember plenty of the failures also, right? And some of them were things that honestly, it's not that some of the failures you learn from and you go, I'm not going to do that again, right? Sort of like, hitting your thumb really hard with a hammer. Like, I'm not going to put my thumb there again. I don't need to learn that one twice. But some of them were just like, well, it didn't work. But looking back, if I'm honest with myself, I would do the same thing again. Like it would probably fail again if I ran it back a second time because we were experimenting a lot. We were just trying lots of things. And so, we were more often than not, we had a few investors, but most of our investments were done through customer funding, right? So we were cash flowing things. And so as a result, we didn't take any huge bets where we were like, let's bet the whole company on this direction and go. But we placed a lot of smaller bets and medium-sized bets of like, look, we really think the industry is going this direction. We're going to try to beat it there, or we're going to try to anticipate, where the next innovation is going to come from and go there. And so some of those things didn't work out. We just hit a brick wall, and it turns out customers didn't want it, or some other company beat us there, or something went sideways. And so, or it's going to take more and more investment. We didn't have it. And so we had to back away from some of those initiatives. And then thankfully, some of them we were able to follow through on, and they were meaningful for us.
A lot of us know that you and Ryan exited. You sold the business. Why'd you do it? What got you to that point? What was the driver behind it? And are you glad you did it?
Yeah, we are. I think a lot of it is, and I'll put it under the umbrella of the 7-year itch. We started the company basically in the winter of 2011. We officially launched in December of 2011, but Ryan had been coding since the previous spring. And then, we sold the company in the fall of 2018 to a private equity group. And that was a big process, right? I mean, we talked for a long time about that. We had talked with other groups before the sale, so the previous couple of years, about various opportunities, right? Investment opportunities for a partial or full sale, chances to combine with other companies. And that goes back even about a year and a half in to starting the company. There was an organization that was very interested in us, but decided to focus on their core, which was services, and they didn't want to branch out and do product, which we were product. But it's something that we had always known was a possibility, for kind of a fast growing and small software company, that there may come a time where a bigger company comes along, or an investment firm comes along and wants to kind of take it forward, take it to the next level. So 7 years in, after a lot of conversations, I think Ryan and I agreed that it was time. It was time to look into that and see if it was possible to do. And so we ended up doing the deal, and we wanted to do something that, was hopefully the best thing for the company, for our customers, for our team, and also for us, right? Give us the opportunity to take stock and then think about what we want to do next. So yeah, big process, emotional process, certainly, because we put in so much time and energy and we had so much fun with it. And the relationships we had with the team that we had assembled, both in California and in Knoxville, were so important to us. So, I always say, and I think every entrepreneur knows this, is when people say something like, "Oh, it's not personal, it's just business," it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, I get the theory of that, but for someone that started a company where it's theirs, the company was me and Ryan and every other member of the team. Like, that's what made it the company. Otherwise, it's just a name on a piece of paper.
Looking back, knowing what you know now, would you do it again? And if you would you do anything different?
Yeah, no question. I mean, because it was so much fun. If it had not been as much fun, then someone could reasonably look back and be like, wow, so much work, so many challenges, such a roller coaster, right? There were the times where it was like, payroll's coming up like this Friday. Like, how are we going to make that work? And hey, what about that customer that really needs that thing, but it's going to take us a few more days of coding, but they really want it like now, and they're getting kind of hot about it. Those are the challenging things, but by far, outweighed by the fun that we had and the creativity that we were able to bring into the office every day, just trying to figure stuff out. So yeah, no question I will be doing it again and kicking off a new piece of software now that's for bookkeepers and accountants to fix uncategorized expenses. So we call the app Uncat. So we're excited to get it to market. I think all of us know good things happen when you grab lunch with folks. And in fact, we talked about this podcast over a lunch at Hard Knocks Pizza. So that proves the point. That I had lunch with a good friend of mine, Adam Slack, who runs Two Roads Bookkeeping. And over that lunch, he was saying, a big hassle, a big thing that our team is spending a lot of time on are these uncategorized expenses. They're expenses. We don't know exactly how to categorize them. We need to get in touch with the client. We don't want to bother the client too much, but we do need answers back from them. We're exporting and sending spreadsheets a lot by email. We think there could be a better way. What do you think about a tech solution to this? Could we make an app out of this that would streamline the process, make for a better workflow, save the client and the bookkeepers a lot of time? And so we started looking into it together, checking out the API, and decided that there was a path forward. And so, yeah, thrilled to be working with Adam on it, as well as Jared Smith. So he's the architect of Uncat and has built the app. So it's an integration with QuickBooks Online that really helps connect bookkeepers and accountants with their clients to fix the uncategorized expenses. So it may be something where you don't know who the vendor is, you need the client to tell you, or you know who the vendor is, but you don't know what the expense was for, so they need to tell you, or you don't know either. You need some sort of additional clarity, or maybe both. You know the vendor and the expense, but you don't know what it was for. And all those things are important for budgeting, for tax, for audit. And so, yeah, it's an app that we think can make a big difference for accountants and bookkeepers. And then Kaylee Vecca-Smith, Jared's wife, is our UX designer. So it's a great team of four. Thrilled to be working with those three folks. And we're just starting to get it out to market over the last couple of weeks. So it's been a fun process. Lots of demos. So it kind of reminds me of back in the day, kicking off with Cirrus Insight.
Well, hey, thanks. I love always hanging out with you. And thanks for being a part of this inaugural edition, episode number 1, hopefully to be hundreds of episodes that serve people in our town, in our community really well. You are someone that has definitely just served me as a friend. And I know that you do so much to serve our community. So thanks for all that you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you saying that, Paul. And like one of my favorite people of all time, my great Aunt Lillian used to say, that goes both ways. She was all about being grateful. She used the word grateful every time I saw her as a youngster. And so I've always remembered that. She was very grateful. So grateful for you putting in the work, getting this podcast out. And thankfully, there's a lot of great stories to tell in Knoxville. It's fun to meet other founders, other entrepreneurs, other people in the game, and hear their stories, their roller coaster.